Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ojiako podcast. Hope you're doing well and are all staying safe. UFC Vegas 20, I'm going to get just straight into it. So the main event, trying to pronounce these names correctly, Ciryl Gane versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Ciryl Gane versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I'm not, guys, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please correct me in the comment section below. So yeah, getting straight into the main event. So for me, when I saw the fight first, I was thinking, okay, looks okay, but for, it just wasn't really doing it for me at first. Now, as I watched it as the fight wore on, Gane was getting some clinches in there, and still in that at certain times it really did feel like it's like one of those situations in a combat sporting fight, controlled environment in the cage, that the two fighters are kind of pacing backwards and forwards, circling the octagon in there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure many people have felt the same way. Someone do something already. It's just really boring. Someone throw a punch or a kick or rushing for a takedown with anything. Just someone do something, because it just feels so boring. And just do something. So overall, Gane did, out of the two guys, Gane did look far more impressive. Of course, he had the advantage of speed and agility, and just some, I say it's heavyweight, so some athleticism on his side, and also the advantage of his reach and range as well. Now, he won the fight by unanimous decision. Now on to the next one, which was Magomed versus Ankala versus let me start that again. It was Magomed and Kalav versus Nikita Krylov, which is the light heavyweight division. And I think Krylov, that's actually pronounced Krylov. So yeah, now this fight was a lot better than the main event. This was a co-main event. So Krylov got a clinch in there, and he turned into a takedown. When I say that, this would have been at the beginning of the first round. And in this case, both fighters were really going at it in comparison to the main event, whereby it really did look. Now, I heard in one podcast sometime just a few hours ago, because many people have been updating their channels and their platforms really quickly just by watching the fight, making the podcast immediately, which is good. That there was one particular event, and I'm getting to another event that it is. They said that actually, because of how these two fighters, even though of course one of them lost, but because they were so good, because the fight was so exciting and entertaining, that event should have been the main event instead of what we had, because what we had as a main event was completely, it was horrible. I think the only good thing that for me personally I took away from the main event was that Ciryl Gane won. It just showed his striking capabilities, his speed and his reach. Not to insult the other guy, but really he could have done better. And I think he came out on his Twitter or his Instagram, and he said that performance he had that night, UFC Vegas 20, and I'm here in the UK filming this show in London. I think UFC Vegas 20 was scheduled to take place on Saturday evening around 8 p.m. So it would have been in the early hours of the 28th of February, on Sunday morning here in the UK in London. But anyway, he said on that particular night, that was his worst performance ever. It was just, not that he was feeling ashamed, but it was his worst performance ever. And, he's going to do everything he can to pick himself up and to make sure that his next fight is going to be nothing like that at all. That it's going to be much, much better. So I think even he knows that his performance was just not good. Just me generous in my words, but I'm not. Respect to them again. This is someone who's doing something that's really dangerous and of course can cause a lot of health issues, especially to your brain and those sort of things. But even he himself, he knows that his performance was really bad. It was just not good at all. It's so bad that many people, including myself, think that some other fights on the fight card, particularly the main card, should have been the main event and not this one. It was almost embarrassing that I said it. No insulting, but it could have been a lot better. So yeah, back to the co-main event, Magomed Anklev versus Nikita Krylov, light heavyweight division. This is best. Both fights were really going at it. Anklev got a few clinches in there, especially I think in the second round. He got the second clinch in, and eventually got his opponent into a takedown. Make sure I'm speaking to this one properly. Okay, not too close. And he got another takedown in as well. And in the second round, Nikita got a spinning kick in, but Anklev just smartly, wisely ducked and missed it, and he got another takedown in as well. And he managed to keep his opponent pinned on the floor and dish out some good strikes. Now in that, I didn't even note down who it was that won. So the winner would have been, Anklev. He won by unanimous decision. Right, so next in the fight card this is the women's flyweight division. Women's flyweight division. So this fight was a draw, and when watching the fight, I can see why. Both, again, excuse me guys, just clear my throat there. Like in the co-main event, both fighters were seriously going at it, giving it their best. So it was kind of easy to see why the whole thing resulted in a draw. Especially Ciryl was really especially towards the end of the fight, she really gave her opponent some serious damage, and her face, De La Rosa's face was really, really swollen. And I just jumped into the fight and how it happened. I didn't even mention their names. It was between Mayra Buena Silva from Brazil, and the other opponent was Montana De La Rosa from the US. Again, the women's flyweight division. And like on the co-main event, and unlike the main event, both fighters were seriously going at it, and giving it their all. Now, and it's important to point out that Silva did lose a point because I think she had grabbed into the fence during a clinch, which kind of resulted in a takedown. And when I watched it, it did look like it looked like it's something you do out of instinct, but I mean, being that it's a particular sport or competition, you would think that actually they know, as an MMA athlete, as an MMA fighter, you're supposed to know the rules. It did look to me like something she did out of instinct, accidentally, not that she did it deliberately to cheat, but unfortunately for her, the referee saw it, and she had to lose a point for that. But yeah, overall, that was a good fight, and if I was to say if it was left to me, and yes, even as still very much a novice, and this is my 16th podcast on mixed martial arts, for me the win would have gone to Buena Silva, because she, especially towards the end, she really did her opponent La Rosa some serious damage. I mean, her face was cut, not too bloody, but it was swollen. You could see this, just a profile of her face, the side of her face. You could see the swelling was just really evident. Now, this is the event that really, in my opinion, and again I say that humbly as an MMA fan that still has so much to learn. I was saying to Charlie the other day that when we had a training session, the more you know about the sport, the more you think you know, when you actually delve into the detail and everything, you actually realize, no, I actually don't know shit, and I still have so much more to know and so much more to learn. But this was the event that I think, in my eyes, it should be the main event. And in other podcasts, it was kind of agreed upon that this really should have been the main event, because it was far more entertaining. Really, really, a lot more entertaining. This would have looked like two champions, or what, two people kind of competing for a title shot. or for a champion spot, for the number one spot, the number one ranking place in a particular weight division. So between Pedro Munhoz versus Jimmie Rivera. Munhoz out of Brazil and Rivera out of I can't remember what that. No, I don't really know where that flag comes from, but it was of the bantamweight division. I think Rivera's from the US. I could be wrong if he's from somewhere completely different. Please, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please correct me in the comment section below. So the fight started out nice and strong. There was strikes and kicks coming from both sides, and in the first round, Munhoz dished out a really mean left hook, which missed, but it kind of wowed the small crowd that was inside the arena there, and even the commentators. Which, God, it was pretty ridiculous. I mean, even I reacted the same way when I saw it for the first time when I was watching on my phone. The ooh from the entire crowd. But anyway, as the fight wore on, Munhoz just kept the leg kicks coming in, just from head to toe, the calf kicks, and the few kicks that got his opponent in Rivera, that got Rivera in the leg. You could see after a short while it was having some effect, because Rivera was having to kind of hop on the spot, jump up and down a little bit, just to prevent his whole weight from sagging onto that wounded leg for so long. You could see actually those leg kicks had done some damage, and I didn't put in my notes, but I made a mental note that this reminded me of it echoes what we saw at UFC 257 between Poirier and McGregor. Many people have said that the leg kick is something that we're going to be seeing a lot in future combat sports, especially in MMA. You can use it to just wear your opponent down as best as you can, and eventually, when that leg becomes so weak, there'll be that one last leg kick that'll just get them to fall over, to keel over, and then potentially you can go in there for a takedown and just finish them off with strikes and TKO, KO, and they'll eventually submit. But it's like what we saw UFC 257. Poirier just kept on going for Conor McGregor's leg. Eventually, McGregor just fell over, and Poirier just rushed in there and just finished him off, and he won the fight. He proved so many people wrong. So many people, including myself, who had bet their bettings and their money on McGregor winning the fight. Even I thought, even me as a mixed martial arts novice, I would have liked Poirier to win, and he did win. He did win. I would have liked Poirier to win, but before the fight, everybody including me, everybody was placing their bets on McGregor just walking into the cage and doing what McGregor does best, winning, fighting, and that just didn't happen. As many people are saying, I think Conor McGregor was kind of too busy showing or trying to prove that he's good at boxing, that his striking is good. But I think Dustin Poirier kind of remembered, especially what happened back at UFC 178 back in September 2014. And of course, between then and now, he's really worked on his skills and really perfected his craft even more. And yeah, it paid off that night. And back to this fight. As the fight wore on, you could see that Rivera's leg just wasn't helping, and it was becoming more and more significant that his, what Munhoz had done to his leg, for Munhoz anyway, was paying off. And basically it was crazy what happened, and he won the fight by unanimous decision. This fight again should have been the main event. This fight had the wow factor. It kept you guessing. It kept you wanting to watch the fight even more. The first fight, no disrespect to Ciryl Gane's opponent. I'm trying to pronounce his name. To Ciryl Gane's opponent, Rozenstruik. No disrespect to him, but the fight just wasn't. It just wasn't that entertaining. It was boring. Just didn't have that wow factor for a main event as well on a fight card in the UFC. So yeah, again, this fight, Pedro Munhoz versus Jimmie Rivera, that more or less had the feel of a main event to it, on a fight card in an organization such as the UFC. Although it's still argued by many people that although the UFC may put on the best events, they're the biggest name within the MMA world. They're known all over the world, especially in the US, where they're a household name. I still argue that, do they really have the best fighters? Well, for me as a novice, I still have so many fights to watch before I can come to my own conclusion. And the last fight in the featherweight division, Alex Caceres versus Kevin Croom. Alex, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, what I'm seeing is Alex Caceres. He won by unanimous decision. And now this one I didn't see because I have the UFC Fight Pass, but for some reason the UFC, I don't think they upload their fights to that particular app, to the server, so you can view that view the fights on that app until maybe a few days after, just so you can suffer a little bit for not paying to watch the fight live on the night that it actually takes place. I couldn't watch it because over here in the UK, the fight would have been taking place in the early hours of the morning, and I just would have been too knackered from work. So it's just one of those things. I was hoping to see on the Fight Pass, but it's at the moment I've checked my phone for doing the show. It isn't there yet. But yeah, that was I won't say for the main event just wasn't didn't live up to all the hype. Quite disappointing. Right, so for just a brief bit of MMA news I come across. So the fight between Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman is going to be taking place despite the back and forth that they had on Twitter. The bit tit for tat, whereby Usman said, forget this, fuck this, I'm not feeling generous anymore, and said, I'll fight anyone now, as if to say that Jorge Masvidal is not going to get first dibs, and it'll be like a first come first serve sort of thing. So no, that was just a hype of the fight. They are going to be fighting, and Jorge Masvidal confirmed this in a statement. Although, again, from my own experience and seeing what happens in this sport, anything can happen. Sometimes it's things within the athlete's control. If they want to fight, fine. Or less, maybe it's something beyond their control. They fall sick, or they get injured, or maybe sometimes they do something that's supposed to and they get cut from the UFC. Or sometimes it's just something like an admin problem. Sometimes the owners of the company, Dana White, have just decided, no, it's not going to sell many pay-per-views. It's not going to bring the profits we need. It's just going to be a waste of money for us, because at the end of the day, these fighting organizations, they are businesses, and they're business first. But anyway, Jorge Masvidal made a statement. Right now, I'm focusing on me. I'm fighting for the belt, which is going to be in August or September of this year, or actually September. We've just got to work on it. So that fight is definitely going to be happening. It's just to set a date. Now back to what I was saying before about the main event for UFC Vegas 20. The fighter that lost, Rozenstruik, he said himself that his performance at UFC Vegas 20 was the worst performance he's ever had. A bit of a brain freeze. Yeah, it's the worst performance he's ever had. Of course, hopefully in the he didn't really release a statement, but it's like a short video clip he had made and uploaded to his Instagram or his Twitter feed, wherever, onto his social media. But on the YouTube clip, YouTube news channel that for MMA that I was watching, basically the gist of what he was saying, that was his worst performance ever. Of course, the next time he steps into the octagon, he's hoping things will go a lot better, and will train much harder, a lot harder for his next fight. And in other news, Kamaru Usman uploaded some footage of him. I don't know if this is going to be a comedy joke, but him doing some foot stamping, and it reminded me of Jorge Masvidal at one of his past fights in the UFC. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember the event, but I do remember watching the fight, and at one particular point, Jorge managed to pin his opponent in a clinch by the fence, and was stamping on his opponent's feet. It's one of the things you can do in MMA. But I think probably Usman made that video just to spite Jorge Masvidal, just probably to make fun of him, something like that. But he did it anyway. But at the same time, Jorge Masvidal had posted something on his Twitter saying, and it was a picture of a guy just had all these cans laid out and just was going along stamping on it with his foot, stamping on each can with his foot. And then Jorge Masvidal says in his comment, basically, this guy scares me. So maybe they're just having, especially Usman anyways, just having a dig at his opponent, Masvidal. And yeah, so quite a few members of the mixed martial arts community and Dana White have kind of reacted to the UFC Vegas 20 main event, and many are quite unhappy. And a few people have said that Gane speed would be a problem for a lot of the heavyweight. There's a bad habit of getting tongue twisted and tongue tied every fucking time. So some have said in reaction to Gane's win, congratulations to Ciryl Gane, he won that fight. That now that for other heavyweight fighters in that particular division, Gane speed will potentially be a problem for them, a lot of them. And I can't remember the names of people off the top of my head who posted these on their Twitter feeds. But many people were like, "Yeah, congratulations, Ciryl Gane," but they just weren't happy with Rozenstruik's performance. It was just really abysmal. I think that spoiled the whole main event for people. It's just, God, it was horrible. And that kind of contradicted myself to what I said at the beginning of this podcast. I'm not shitting on him or hating on him, but it could have been a lot better. And I think even he knows himself, so I'll stop that there. Now on to the trilogy fight between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. So that is going to happen. So they keep saying. But again, this sport, anything can happen and anything can change. So Dana White has said that Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, they will fight the trilogy bout sometime this summer of 2021, but nothing is official or confirmed yet. So Dustin Poirier even he mentioned this on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said that he's still having conversations with relevant people. Those conversations are still ongoing. There's negotiations being made, but nothing is certain yet. And lastly, so Ciryl Gane now wants a heavyweight title fight after his win against Rozenstruik, and I don't think there's much else I can say about that. He won that fight at fair and square, and unfortunately for his opponent Rozenstruik, it just wasn't his best performance at all. So, better luck in the next one. So another thing that I saw in the news is that TJ Dillashaw, he's showing himself more and more in social media now, especially in YouTube, MMA news channels. Fine. His the suspension, his ban from the sport by USADA has expired. So he's free and more than welcome to come back. But again, many people are. Excuse me. Many people are of the mindset or are of the mind that he should have been banned, and he should have been banned for life. And I've heard many athletes in the past, not even say a few days ago, but a few years ago, because people getting caught in any sport with steroids is nothing new. But I mean, it's just that it sets the precedent that if you've been suspended for a certain period of time and then you're allowed to come back, is it really fair? Because it sets the precedent that finding you get caught and you get caught with a banned substance in your system. You get caught with a banned substance in your system, and you're allowed to come back to the sport after being punished for so many days, weeks, months, or even years. But it sets a precedent for other people that you can do the wrong thing, and you can do the wrong thing, you can cheat, but you can still be considered for major opportunities like competing for, say, a championship belt, a title belt, a title fight, those sorts of things. So even me myself, I'm of the mind that when you get caught with something like this, where I do understand that there are certain banned substances in medication that's been prescribed by doctors, that the athlete will need, say for recovery purposes or for injuries or for certain illnesses, and there's no other source of medication that they can take that can actually do the job. That I understand, but when you're taking a substance that you know is banned, that you know is illegal in the sport that you are competing in, that you know will give you an unfair advantage over your opponent that you're going to be competing against, I do really think that it's very unfair to other people in the sport, especially when it comes to competing for things like championship and belts and for title fights, those sort of things. I think it's really, really unfair, and especially in a sport like MMA, because of the nature of the sport, you're having to inflict as much physical damage onto your opponent as much as possible. Strikes, headbutts, knees, leg kicks, calf kicks, takedowns, clinches, strikes. It's physical violence. Of course, it's controlled, but still, if you've got a banned substance in your body that's giving you that unfair advantage, just making you physically stronger, and your recovery is greatly improved, is really, really improved. Is that really fair? I mean, that sort of thing, and I've heard other athletes say it, that if you're caught with if an athlete finds himself in that situation and they're caught with the banned substance, then it should be a lifetime ban. Especially whereby the athlete knew that they knew they were doing something wrong. I don't really call something like this a mistake. A mistake is whereby you do something wrong and you didn't know it's wrong. A mistake isn't something whereby you do something wrong and you knew that it was wrong. You knew that it was wrong, but you still intentionally went ahead and did it anyway. So that's my take on the whole thing. But I mean, it's something that Charlie did mention to me before making this podcast that I should include it in the show. What do you guys think? I mean, I know I haven't got many subscribers on this channel yet. I do appreciate that my channel does have some subscribers and it does get some views. This podcast is still very tiny, and I'm trying my best to grow as much as possible. I mean, what do you guys think? Should it be a lifetime ban or should it be a suspension? I mean, especially, should it be a lifetime ban whereby the athlete knew they were taking something that was illegal and they knew that was going to give them an unfair advantage over their opponent, especially in a sport like mixed martial arts or any other combat sport? So it's something that's been plaguing my mind for a while. So ever since this guy was caught, I basically failed a test that was administered by USADA, and he was suspended. And since I've been seeing him on all these YouTube channels, the last one that I saw of him was when he was on the Quick with Mike Swick podcast. Mike Swick is a retired mixed martial arts fighter, part of the AKA gym, the AKA team from San Jose in California, but he's set his own stuff up under the same name, AKA out in Thailand. He recently had TJ Dillashaw on his podcast, and TJ Dillashaw basically was saying, yeah, he's paid for his mistakes, he's served his time, served his punishment, and he even though he wants a title shot, basically that sort of opportunity, that sort of fight, he knows there's going to be lots of naysayers and haters who will be saying, well, I won't necessarily say haters, but a lot of naysayers and a lot of people who will be against him going down that route. And he basically said that he doesn't care, but he could find himself basically in the same sort of situation that John Jones is in, because John Jones has been through a lot of controversy where banned substances, PEDs and steroids are concerned. Although TJ Dillashaw doesn't have a long record as John Jones, but it's not too different. They're not too far apart, those two cases. So guys, I'll end this here. I really think that maybe before filming these I should have like a bit of a drink, like some cider or some whiskey, just something to calm my nerves, because for some reason I just always feel on edge when making these podcasts and making these shows. Either I feel weird because I'm discussing with somebody else, which is far more entertaining for myself, hopefully for them and for the viewers and the listeners, or maybe just I feel nervous on edge. I know the first podcast I had with my first kickboxing coach. That was I did feel nervous, but it was a lot more fun, far more entertaining. There was far more to talk about. It was a lot more fun because I could discuss issues with him. He could discuss issues with me, and I'd learn a lot from him about the sport, because I still don't know. There's still so much that I don't know, but he knows a lot. He's well vested in the sport. His brother has fought Marco Bisping at some point in the past, so that's how well vested he is and in the sport of mixed martial arts. So guys, I'll end this here. Yes, if you did enjoy this podcast, if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to leave a like on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe if you did enjoy my content. What else? Yeah, you can listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can listen on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Listen Notes, TuneIn Radio, and I'm still trying to push my podcast to many other platforms. You can follow me on Instagram. My name is Ojiako1. On Twitter and Facebook, my name is Ojiako. And yeah, guys, thanks again.